For a population that grows at a constant rate of r% per year, the formula P of t is equal to P sub 0 times the quantity 1 plus r over 100 to the t power. That models the population t years after initial population of P sub 0 people is counted. Confusing enough? This one's not that hard. The population of the city of San Jose was 782,000 in 1990. Assume the population grows at a constant rate of 5% per year according to this formula. Which of the following is an expression for the population of San Jose in the year 2000? So we're just going to take that formula and substitute in what we need to. P sub 0, that's the initial population. R is the rate per year. And T is the number of years. So it says we're going from 1990 to 2000. That's going to be P of 10, or 10 years. And that 10 is also going to go in as T. Now, 782,000, that is the initial population. So the population of San Jose was 782,000 in 1990, the year that we're starting this. Then 1 plus 5 over 100, that 5 is the percent it's growing per year. Now, all we have to do, and we don't want to get this to an exact number, notice the answer choices. We want to match this up with one of these. So the question is, which of these does this match up with when you take it a little bit further? 5 over 100, it's the same thing as 0.05. When you divide 5 by 100, it's 0.05. And you can see we're getting close to these. 1 plus 0.05, that would be 1.05. So 782,000 times 1.05 to the 10th, that is letter C. Tom's long distance service charges 10 cents per minute from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. on weekdays, all day on Saturdays, and all day on holidays. 5 cents per minute all day on Sundays, and 25 cents per minute at all other times. The table below gives his long distance calls for 1 week, including the date and the day of each call, the time it was placed, and the number of minutes it lasted. The question is, what did Tom's long distance service charge him for the calls in the table? You have to go through each one of these and figure out what each one of these calls cost him. This Tuesday at 5 p.m. for 8 minutes, that falls into the 25 cent per minute category. So 25 cents times 8 is $2. This Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. for 10 minutes, that again falls into the 25 cent per minute category. Times 10, that'd be $2.50. This Thursday, which is a Thanksgiving holiday, 11:30 a.m. for 15 minutes, that falls into the 10 cent per minute category because that is a holiday. So 10 cents per minute times 15, it's $1.50. This Saturday at 9:30, that's a weekend for 17 minutes. That's another 10 cent per minute call. 10 cents times 17 is $1.70. And then finally, Sunday, 12:15 p.m. for 22 minutes. That's a 5 cent per minute call. And 5 cents per minute times that 22 minutes would be $1.10, or $8, total of $8.80 when you add those up. So $8.80 is the total for all those calls, and that is letter J. Parallel sides of the isosceles trapezoid shown below are 10 feet long and 16 feet long, respectively. What is the distance in feet between these two sides? You have to find the distance between the 10-foot side and the 16-foot side. And simple enough, just drop a vertical down and you need to find that distance. So notice you're setting up a right triangle. You know two sides of the right triangle. You need to find the third side. So you can bring back your old friend, the Pythagorean theorem. Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The sum of the squares of the legs is equal to the square of the hypotenuse. So in this right triangle, the hypotenuse, the side across from the right angle, is 5. One of the legs is 3. It doesn't matter whether that 3 goes in for A or for B. One of the legs is 3. So you can say 3 squared plus b squared equals the hypotenuse, or 5 squared. That'd be 9 plus b squared equals 25. Subtract 9 from each side. B squared equals 16. And then take the square root of each side. But by the way, notice 16 is an answer. That's not the right answer. Take the square root of each side. Square root of 16 is 4. That distance between the sides of 10 and 16 is 4 using the Pythagorean theorem. Letter B. The inequality 3 times the quantity x plus 2 is greater than 4 times the quantity x minus 3. That is equivalent to which of these inequalities? Notice we're just going to take this and solve for x. Solving an inequality is just like solving an equation, except when you multiply or divide each side by a negative number, you have to change or flip or reverse the inequality sign. To start off, use the distributive property. To 3, take 3 times x, that is 3x, and 3 times 2 would be 6. Then distribute the 4 through the second set of parentheses. 4 times x is 4x, and 4 times negative 3 would be negative 12. want to get the x to one side, everything else to the other side. So we'll subtract 3x from each side. Get 6 is greater than x minus 12. And then add 12 to each side. 18 is greater than x. That's not showing up here, but if you flip this around, take this x and just drag the whole thing around, it's going to match up with x is less than 18. 18 is greater than x is the same as x is less than 18. Letter K is it. The standard xy coordinate plane, the midpoint of AB is 4, -3. And A is located at 1, -5. If coordinates xy are the coordinates of B, what is the value of x plus y? Well, the midpoint formula, try not to get hung up on the midpoint formula. It's simply adding the x's together and dividing by 2, adding the y's together and dividing by 2. That gives you the coordinates of the midpoint. So the x coordinate of the midpoint is taking the x coordinates of the endpoint and dividing by 2. So once again, x coordinate of the midpoint is adding the x coordinates of the endpoints and dividing by 2. The midpoint is given to you here. It's 4, -3. So the x coordinate of the midpoint is going to be 4. And the x coordinate of the endpoint that's given to you is 1. So 4 equals 1 plus x2 over 2, where x2 is the x coordinate of the other endpoint. Multiply each side by 2, you get 8 equals 1 plus x2, and then subtract 1 from each side. The x coordinate of the other endpoint would be 7. Do the same thing for the y coordinate because we have to find x plus y. So the y coordinate of the midpoint that's given to you is -3. And that's arrived at by adding the y coordinates of the endpoint together and dividing by 2. So the y coordinate of the midpoint is -3. The y coordinate of the endpoint is -5. We need to find the y coordinate of the other endpoint. So -3 equals -5 plus y2 over 2. Again, the y coordinate of the midpoint is just adding the y coordinates of the endpoints and dividing by 2. Solve that for y2. Multiply each side by 2. Get -6 equals -5 plus y2. Add 5 to both sides. y2, or the y coordinate of the other endpoint, would be -1. So the x coordinate of the other endpoint is 7. The y coordinate of the other endpoint is -1. Need to take x plus y, or 7 plus -1. That is going to be 6. And that is letter C. For all x in the domain of the function x plus 1 over x to the third minus x, this function is equivalent to which of these? So you basically have to simplify this. That x to the third minus x is a common factor of those two terms. So you could factor an x out of those two terms on the bottom. If you factor an x out, you're dividing each term by x, and that's what goes in the parentheses. Divide x to the third by x, it's going to be x squared. And if you divide -x by x, it's going to be -1. Now that x squared minus 1 is a difference of two squares. That will factor into x plus 1 times x minus 1. Remember, we're simplifying this to be one of these. Looking at that, the x plus 1 and the x plus 1, you could cancel those. You'd be left with 1 over x times x minus 1, or 1 over x squared minus x. Letter J. In the figure below, line L is parallel to line M. Transversals T and U intersect at point A on L and intersect M at points C and B, respectively. Point X is on M. The measure of angle ACX is 130 degrees. You can see ACX, that's 130. And the measure of angle BAC is 80 degrees. How many of the angles formed by rays of L, M, T, and U have measures of 50 degrees? Well, knowing these two angles, you can pretty much get all the other angles. And it appears there are going to be a lot of 50s. So we'll start off here around this 130. Angles in a straight line add up to 180. So if that angle is 130, then one right next to it is 50. Next to that's 50. And then you have reasons for all the others. 80 and 50 is 130, so that angle would be 50. Vertical angles here are 50. These two angles, these two 50s together are called alternate interior angles. They're on alternate sides of the transversal on the inside of the parallel lines. These two angles are alternate interior angles. These two angles are vertical. Vertical angles, so you can see all the ones we're filling in there are 50s. Letter C, 8. There are 8 50-degree angles.